My name is Binny. I'm 66. This was my childhood home I grew up in, and it's here in Moerewa. I went to the UK and I stayed there for 45 years, and after that I came home to the very house and to love it back into existence. I feel sometimes I'm neither fish nor bird. You know, I don't know where I am sometimes. And I wake up in the morning and I think, I'll take my granddaughter to Mould and we'll go have ice cream and do see the markets. And then I wake up and I realise I'm not there. And it's a different lifestyle, totally different lifestyle. I think I blossomed in the UK, and there were many, many opportunities that were given to me, which I took advantage of, which I don't think I could have had the same here. Well, when I first arrived, it was very, very difficult. Coming from a different culture with different habits. You know, we eat bread with our meal at night. They don't over there. They wash their clothes in the kitchen, you know. So coming from my background, we don't do things like that. It was very, very difficult. I had difficulties with my mother-in-law. My father-in-law was wonderful, very understanding, and so I had to, you know, toe the line. And yes, I got married in New Zealand. He was English, and then when he went home, I followed him, and then we started our life together. He worked on a ship, and he'd hurt himself, and their sick bay wasn't enough to treat his injuries, so they sent him to Green Lane. I was in Green Lane at the time. I was also his nurse, and that's how we met. And later, a few months later, I flew over to the UK. But we were married here. I wanted to get married on the ship by the captain, but the captain was getting married on the same day. So we had a special license. It was a rush job because he was sailing the next day. So we had a special license. It was rushed through, and we got married in the Auckland Registry Office. So I was doing a forensic cleanup, and it was specialized cleanups. You know, it was drugs, it was hazardous fuels, it was when people die in their homes and they were laying there, they'd be sitting for a month before they were found. Then it would go in and would do that. Okay, the first one, it was a gentleman who got up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and he might have, I think he suffered a heart attack because he fell and he cut his head and there was very little blood. So he lay there for a week, and it was his cat that raised the awareness, because the cat kept coming back crying and scratching the door, and he loved his cat, and the neighbours couldn't understand why the cat was, you know, he wouldn't let the cat in. So they called the police, they called the council, and they discovered him lying dead in the hallway. They say he was dead for about a week. And so my job then was to remove all his assets, because the flat that he lived belonged to the council, and the council wanted it back so they could re-let it. And they asked me to go in and empty his flat. And that's how it started. And then another gentleman, he was sitting in his armchair, and he had been dead for a month. So the neighbours were alerted by the smell and the flies. So they broke the door down and they found him sitting in his armchair.
These are elderly people?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. This man was, well, he was in his late 40s. early 50s. Yeah. I've had a young boy. He overdosed in a shed. So, and I found his passport. He was 23. Yeah. So he was my next one that was discovered at time. So those are the three that I worked on.
It has a kind of macabre quality to it.
Yes, it has, because you know, if you're lying dead for some time, your gases and that, you know, start building, and you can explode. So when the police came to put him in a body bag, and I was there, they were a little bit rough with the corpse, and I was frightened that because he'd bloated so much that he might explode. Sorry, guys, but it does. And once it explodes, I mean, it's harder to get clean off the ceiling and everything. And it's very sad. It's very sad. I had another gentleman who he went shopping and he fell over. He hit his head on the concrete floor. He was buying sweets, of all things, and he was taken to hospital, and he didn't survive that fall. So possibly there was something not quite right with him anyway. But he died in hospital, and I was asked to go into his home and empty it so they could put it on the market and sell it. And when I go into a home now, you get so used to it. You read the homes. They leave a story. They leave their story behind, and it's very, very sad. And I noticed he had a television, but he didn't have any form of music or CDs or radios or anything to play music, cassettes, and there was no music. So I said to the council guy who took me, his name was Stuart Picken, I said, Stuart, I see a television and yet there's no CDs and there's no cassettes and no means of playing it. And he said he was profoundly deaf, but he could lip read. And so I thought, wow. But he was an amazing artist, and he painted miniatures, and the detail and the workmanship, the art, just exquisite. Yeah. So I worked alongside the police in forensic until I met Adam, and then I didn't want to do it anymore.
Adam being this guy who, the boy.
Yes, the little boy that was found in the Thames. They called it the torso in the Thames. And he was brought over from Africa, and all they had to go on was his red pair of shorts and the contents of his stomach. There were no arms, no legs, and no head. I couldn't deal with that. Had I been called out to do one on a baby or a young child, no. I could not see myself. You're supposed to isolate yourself, but no. And because my background is a nurse, so our job is to preserve life. And no, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. What do I like about Moerewa? I like my little haven here. I enjoy my house. I enjoy my friends out there. There's a lot for me to be going on with. Yes, I do my catering. I do my flying, and I like to paint and do my gardens. And I'm happy. I'm happy there. Fly out of Kirikiri Airport, and when we take to the skies, we let everybody know where we are because we are sharing the airspace. I've flown over the house. I've experienced a lot of turbulence when we're flying over the trees and ploughed ground because it sends up a lot of thermals and a lot of, what do you call it, turbulence. from Moerewa. That is our marae. We are Ngai Tawake. That's our sub-tribe. We are still Ngāpuhi. So we have our own cemetery where our family lie. Our grandparents are there, uncles, aunties, my brothers and sisters, and all our loved ones. So a cemetery doesn't tidy itself up. So we have volunteers. And our family, we are the Witahita family, and our family is scheduled this Saturday to clean the urupa. It's our turn. So we take different families, will take different months. So these are our months. And we go cut the grass, weed, prune, take the rubbish away, take the dead flowers away, just make it a very nice place to go to. A place of tranquility and calm, somewhere to sit, reminisce, think, cry, shout, you know, but there's a lot of love there. So it's our turn as the Witahita whanau to go and clean up the urupa. We have great respect for our ancestors, and that's one way we can show that our love. And my children have never met the grandfather. My great, it's her father. He was the chief, a great rangatira, a well-respected man in the community by both Pākehā and Māori. And yeah, so that's my grandfather. And we just show our love and our respect in that way.